Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another episode of Tigers Talk Rugby. Before we get started, I'd like to thank Tiger Vision again for providing us with the facilities and the equipment to make this possible. So let's get this started. I'm your host, Ethan Richards.
And I'm his co-host, CJ Bakle. And this week we have Tyler Doolittle, a recurring guest. You know, I think this is your third time being on?
Third time sounds right.
Sounds about right.
You just can't get rid of me. I don't know.
Yeah, we can. So
we like having you, though.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
So we got a great show lined up for you guys. We're going to talk a little bit about this weekend's match, Navy versus Clemson.
And as well as a little bit on the women's match for Clemson versus USC.
And then some World Cup action. And this is a great show for you. Again, like always, give us some feedback in the comments and the Facebook. We appreciate anything that you'd like to say. So why don't we just get on with it?
Alrighty. So we'll start with the Navy-Clemson match.
Yeah.
Crushing defeat in the score line, 55-0. Navy winning that match.
Despite, I know it's funny to say this, despite the scoreline, a lot of us had a lot of fun.
Really?
I think
okay.
I think the Clemson Tiger boys, we had like a good amount of fun. I know you hate to see that result, and like nobody likes losing, but I feel as if with the conditions and the competition we were playing, a lot of us had a lot of fun.
And there was a good amount of subs on the roster that it was either their first or their second D1A game, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think, let me see. I think there was a few guys, like Nick McElveen, that was his first D1A match. A lot of guys were like second, it's like their second D1A match, like Keaton Malden, he got his second cap for D1A. But I think
Cade Weston
had his second as well. I think it was a good, like the team. It's like again, those guys don't have a whole lot of D1A experience, but they're like pretty good with their knowledge as well as some of their like playing ability. So I'm pretty proud of us in terms of we didn't quit because last year against Navy we quit within like 20 minutes. I could say that our heads were hung low.
I'm not sure I
necessarily were bad.
Agree with that because the score at halftime last year was 14-28. So it's interesting to hear you say that because from like a scoreline perspective last year, like it didn't seem like a quitting game. It didn't look like a quitting game. Obviously, those two tries were off of some crazy breakaways, off of some good steals. Like Hunter Dossie's try was almost full field, and like this year they ended up shutting out the team. So, Tyler, you got any insights on what went wrong or what went well for Navy?
So just from what I saw, so I was a bystander at this game, so I was able to watch it all and I see everything. The conditions were pretty rough. It was a nice, cold, wet, rainy day here in Clemson, South Carolina.
Yeah, perfect weather, right?
Perfect weather for rugby. The main issues that I saw, I think really hindered us were our set pieces, especially our lineouts. I feel like that's something that we need to work on as a team. There's just, we would get these penalties and you just can't capitalize on them if you can't win that set piece back. And that really hurt us. Navy, in general, just looked a lot more creative than they did last year, in my opinion. And I think we can kind of credit that to their head coach, Hickey.
Gavin Hickey, yeah.
Hickey. So his team just, last year, to me, it seemed like there was a lot of kind of scripted just pod running, and this year it looks like their back line, they're running, we like to call, back doors. They're running doubles, which is a term that we have, but they were getting the ball wide and they were really using their wingers a lot more than I saw last year. And I mean, that's good for them. They're a top 10 team, and I think.
Yeah, and again, they're on fire right now because they've played, St. Bonaventure, Iona, Kutztown, Davenport, and Air Force, and they've won 5 straight from those guys. Of which it seems like all of those games are won by more than, double digits, except for
yeah,
Kutztown.
other than a close in ranking, only two away with Kutztown. So.
Right. So they're a solid team. They're Navy's a very good team, and credit to them. They got good coaching. They're very disciplined, and they are always going to be fit. And that again, that's what's going to happen when you play a Naval Academy side. Now, in terms of us, do you think we have a whole lot of positives this last weekend?
I feel like you can always take positives from a loss.
Yeah.
Because when you are exposed by a team, that's when you really feel like you learn your weaknesses and you learn how to get better and how to get stronger in those positions that you're weak at, or in those decision-making skills that are weak for certain individuals. I feel like it's something that I'm sure somebody will go over the film and people will learn from what they see the second time round, if not already from the first.
See, to me, just compared to last year, even though the scoreline, was 55-0, to me, our defense, I think, held up a lot better, especially down the middle. Last year, they were able to just break tackles right through the middle, which should never happen, and they were able to get these long drives. And this year really felt like, we forced them to go wide. They had to go wide to get around us, and they had to. Fortunately, they were able to win a good amount of one-on-ones against our wingers, and their wingers were able to get some nice long runs with some good stiff arms and some just solid physical contact. But they had to use those wingers. They couldn't just drill it right down our throats through the middle. And to me, that was a positive.
Yeah. So compared to last year when we played them, it was forward ball, forward ball, forward ball, forward ball, forward ball. Let's think about passing it out to the backs, crash line with the center. So they were just shoving it down our throats through the middle. And we just weren't tackling well at all. And that's, again, like you said, we gave up a lot of tries within the middle. But this time around, it seemed a little bit more methodical with trying to get it out to the wings, like Tyler said.
And technical.
Yeah, it was a lot more technical, and I was kind of surprised because last year their backs would only run crash lines or just run hands. Whereas this time around, there was some looping, there was a lot. Like Tyler said, there was a couple doubles, a lot of blockers were going on. It was definitely something different compared to what we played last year. But I think that might be because Navy wants to make that next step to be an elite team, like the Lifes, Lindenwoods, and all that such. So they need to break away from that, forward ball, run hands, crash line with centers.
Kind of experience modern rugby in
Right.
a sense.
It's that breakaway from a script, in a sense, just okay, we're going to run pods until we get to a certain point, and then it'll go to the backs. That
Right,
kind of script.
right.
And now they're getting into actually looking up, seeing they saw that they were beating our wingers, and so they made that adjustment that, okay, well, let's get out to the wing. And how are we going to do that? They were running good plays to stop our defense from kind of just getting out there and swarming their winger. So it was good on them. Compared to last year, I think what we did better was kicking. We did not
Last year
kick
we did
at
not
all
kick
last
well.
year, so it made me happy to see. There was a couple times I think our kick chase just could have been a little better. Maybe that comes from just making open field tackles, but and then just kind of adjusting the kicks. It was wet, it was rainy, and we had a couple that went a little too high, and that should have just been kind of drilled straight into space behind them and let that ball kind of bounce around, because our kick chase just wasn't able to get there soon enough, and being able to just drill it and let it bounce would give us a little bit more time to get there.
So looking forward, in a couple weeks, Clemson men's rugby has a game against Davenport on the 9th?
Second.
Second?
November 2nd.
I believe
November
it's
9th.
I believe it's the 9th.
9th, my
I
bad.
just
My
checked
bad.
Yeah.
yesterday. It's the 9th.
Yeah, and so what do you think? How do you think the players and the mindset and the bounce back is going to lead to success in this upcoming match? It's still 3 weeks away,
Yeah.
roughly.
3 weeks now.
What do you think players? How do you think players are going to adjust their mindset to look forward to this next match?
I think guys need to realize that this is not you should not think of the result. You should think about the process of what happened with this game. So don't look at the 55-0 score and be like, be down about that. Look at what we did wrong, and let's improve on that, because we have 3 weeks. So that mindset needs to be in place, is that improving mindset. And then the idea of, okay, so even though we did this, what are some of the positives? And let's say, hey, we did do some things correct. And let's see if we can make that even better for Davenport. And then, again, Davenport plays a different game than Navy. So we need to also figure out how to play against them rather than playing against Navy.
So you think it comes from preparing for the individual side that you're going to be matched up against?
Yeah, I think
that'll make a difference?
I think that usually makes a difference, because so many teams have so many different play styles.
Right.
You need to be able to learn how, well, first of all, you have to learn your own style and figure out your own identity. And then when you're going up against a team like that, you have to figure out what's a good play or game plan, and then just keep with it, you know? So, I would say last year, so I know we're using the Navy game from last year and this year, but last year, we had the mentality of, let's kick it down their throats, let's, every single time we're in our own half and half possession, just kick it and get it away and just retain possession. But last year we didn't. This year we had a little bit more of a mentality of doing that, and it succeeded at times, but again.
So from just personal experience, last year we had a summer schedule. We played Navy and then Davenport, and got crushed by Navy, and then we were able to go up to Michigan, and we had a pretty close game to Davenport. I think it was a solid game to me. I know it ended up being a loss, but there was a lot of positives from just the difference between the two games, and that came really a lot towards attitude. Was a problem last year. So what I expect to see is, we'll go into practice and we'll see the mistakes that we had, and we'll be working on them. So, for me personally, I hope to see a lot more line-out practice, and because that was, to me, a pretty big issue. And so it's kind of just, it's putting that big loss behind you and just looking for the future. And I think most of our players on the team do a pretty good job of looking at the positives and being able to see the negatives, but not get too down themselves that they just can't look at the next game, and they'll want to have their heads up and they'll want to get ready.
Right. So I feel like we've covered a good chunk for this game and what's upcoming for the men's side. Now, how about the positive victory for the women's side on Friday night
over the Gamecocks, the Lady Gamecocks?
Big rivalry.
Yeah, that was a very good game.
It was a great game.
It was very physical.
I know we were all there watching that game. It was extremely physical.
I think, Clemson women's their forwards, I felt, were just able to just really take that away. There was a couple really nice breakaway runs that it was just, they were breaking tackles and running straight down the middle. And that, as a Clemson fan, just in general, that's just great to see.
Absolutely. Yeah, But for me, the first 20 minutes seemed like pretty tough and almost like disconnected. Like individual players were trying to get things set up, but it wasn't quite groups getting things set up. And that the USC side ended up taking the lead initially, but after the 20-minute mark or so, the Clemson women's side started putting together pods and putting together backline crash lines or dummy lines and started to create structure that was organized chaos in a way. They were able to hide their plans but attack aggressively with them, and that was so impressive. It was amazing to watch that game.
Yeah, it was definitely one of the better games I've seen recently, especially from college level. I got to give a lot of credit to the women forwards. they were playing, again, we were saying a physical match. And I think, again, it went from like chaos to more organized chaos. And I think that a lot of it has to do with leadership. So like Kim Henning,
Absolutely.
which, friend of the show.
Yeah, she's been on.
She'd been on. I could see it that she was hungry and she was well organizing her forwards. And props to like Hannah Duma. She had a fantastic game, lots of breaks.
Yeah.
The forwards were regaining possession almost every single time they were running the ball in, and it was very as a forward, it was very like almost like pridening to like watch.
Yeah.
Because it's like
Absolutely.
it's like heck yeah, these guys are doing it. Like they're just demolishing them. I love seeing it.
I think the most like impressive part of what the forwards did, and even when the backs got in there, was the support rucking. It was
Right.
so quick. There were so few turnovers in that game for the Gamecocks to taking it, because the pack was like always there with their support lines, and credit to Marty, the women's coach, for making sure that they were like retaining possession of the ball when they had it,
Right.
and putting phases together, because like I know it's as a forward, when you get to the 60th minute and you're exhausted and you still have to be there every time, and the women's team, they were doing it. The ladies were supporting and clearing out really well.
That's really just props to win. I know when it gets to that point where it's just a really physical game, it really comes down to just who wants it more. Because when both forward packs are going to be exhausted around that 60, 70th minute, and it just comes out to who wants it more. And
Absolutely.
the Clemson women's team just showed that they really did want it more. I mean, they were there. They gave 110%. You could tell even when they were tired, they were still getting the support that they needed and clearing out and just giving everything they had.
And the Tiger women also, you can tell that they're very well coached, again, by Marty, because they also are able to see a little bit better of the field. Because at times, USC did not have a 15 back. They
Right,
didn't have
and-
anybody back. And you could see that, the back line was like, oh, God, like, we got to kick it. We got
There's
to
a
kick
kick
it.
there, yeah.
Yeah. So they showed a lot of intelligence, or at least on-field intelligence and adaptiveness to be able to put that ball into space.
One of the most like exciting moments, and I felt turned the game almost, was when there was a penalty on about the 10 meter and
Their 10 meter
on the Clemson 10 meter.
Okay.
And it was a penalty against USC, and they had all turned their back and started walking back, and everybody on the sideline was screaming, "Tap it, go! Tap it, go!" And they ended up tapping it, 3 of them down the side of the field, like in that little like 5 meter channel, and spilled a little bit over, just took it all the way to the house and scored the try, and that to me was like a turning point in the game, and I felt the fire hit the field for the women's side, and credit to the 15. I don't remember her name, unfortunately, but she was crushing it. She's fast. She was aggressive, athletic, and she was willing to take any ball into contact or hunt any ball down that she needed to, and she was an impressive player. I think that would have been my player of the game.
Yeah. The women do play with a tenacity that a lot of teams don't play with.
Absolutely.
And that's like something to look like as a men's team. We need to look up to that.
Absolutely.
That was a great thing to go for a majority of the men's team to go to that match and see that, because we need to learn from them a little bit. So.
Which it was actually quite exciting to see the amount of players from the men's side that showed up to support at that game.
Hey, we all just love rugby, and nobody really likes USC. So.
I mean, it's always fun to watch any Clemson side
Absolutely.
beat USC like that. It's a big rivalry game, and like CH said, we all love rugby, and I mean, we want to show the women's support and anything just to grow the sport. And
Absolutely.
came out with the dub, and can't complain with that.
Yeah.
So.
All right.
Collegiate rugby.
Yeah, moving on from the collegiate rugby, let's get into the World Cup action.
What an exciting weekend.
But before we get to this weekend, so we've had 2 weeks off. I don't know if you've noticed, And so we missed the ending of the pool phases and the rounding up of who was going into the quarterfinals.
Yep.
So a little bit of a review on that. CJ, how about Japan?
Okay.
Don't you want to?
So they did exactly what I said they would.
They did better.
Stole the hearts of everybody. I'm
Yeah.
telling you, they stole everybody's hearts. And if you are sat here saying you do not like Japan anymore, then
Shame on you.
Then you don't really know the true spirit of rugby.
I like Japan, but what about my bracket?
Yeah, your bracket.
Oh yeah, because
bracket hurts.
you guessed Ireland, Scotland, correct?
So we can go back to our predictions.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, go back to the
So
prediction.
for that Group A, I guessed that Ireland was going to win out, and then Scotland was going to be second. I know CJ did not agree with that.
I said Ireland.
So you had the teams correct, CJ, but
Yeah, I
you
just
did
had
not
to
have
do
the
that.
order. So I would like to say that you had faith in Japan, but not enough.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Shame
right.
on you, CJ. Shame on you.
right?
Yeah, but
See, everybody kind of knew that
I-
Japan was going to pull an upset. Everybody was thinking, oh, it's going to be Scotland. It'll
Right.
be Scotland. Oh, it'll be Scotland.
And then-
all of a sudden, it's the next day where you see like Ireland beat Japan. You're like, huh? What happened?
Want to say, Scotland for me was my
disappointment.
disappointment.
I agree.
I guess that, and I want to have faith in Scotland, and then I said, they're probably going to be the most disappointing team to me, and that kind of turned out.
Fell through.
That fell through.
I will say the Japan-Scotland game, the decider for who was going through.
That was
It
was a great match.
It was a phenomenal match to watch.
I mean, Japan, they earned their wins. They really did. They played phenomenally. They throughout the whole group stage, and
Yeah, by the end of the group stage, they were ranked 6th in the world.
Wow.
I believe, and they deserved it because the way they beat Ireland, the way they beat Scotland, like it was sturdy victories. Like they were not anything to. Like,
They weren't flukes.
Right. They were good games, well played, and I think that transferred in to the first half of this quarterfinal match. But we'll get more into that in a little bit.
So reviewing those were our predictions for Pool A.
So-
What about Pool B?
so Pool B, I guessed New Zealand and South Africa in that
Okay.
order, and
I was the
Yeah.
only one that had flipped them because I had wanted to have faith in South Africa because of how they had performed in the championship.
Yeah.
And it's, they went into that game and they played well for a half, but then
You're talking about the New Zealand South Africa.
yeah, the New Zealand South Africa game, the opener for that pool.
Right.
And South Africa went into that game and they played a good first half. Like it was a very, very competitive game for a good amount of time in my eyes. And they couldn't hold it. And I question how they will do as the quarterfinals and as the quarterfinals goes into the semis and goes into the finals if they make
Right.
it, because of that game in particular.
for me, I feel like I guessed that they would lose to New Zealand. I knew that. For me, it just felt like New Zealand, they slumped a little bit in the Rugby Championship, but like we said, that historically has happened. They like to play new players. They don't like to give away their
Whole
game
plan.
plan. They don't want to do that right before World Cup. And so really that's the time to develop the guys with not a lot of caps and to really figure out what their starting roster is going to be. And so we saw that New Zealand turned out to be the better team then. But I feel like that game is going to just kind of be, it's ringing in South Africa's ears. I mean, they had we'll get into this a little bit later, but they had a pretty close match with Japan, but they were able to pull out and kind of get through that with tenacity. And I feel like that's going to carry through. That's my prediction. But we won't get into that too much, but that's coming up.
So Group C. USA. What was your prediction with the USA?
Okay, again, it was full faith. I wanted to see the team excel, and they fell very short of my expectations. I at least thought we would be able to beat Tonga because of how we performed in the Pacific Cup, But I will also say we didn't take all of the guys that we played in the Pacific Cup.
That is also true.
It was a younger side, and I think that younger side was better than the side we brought. Not necessarily like I'm 100% like that side was better, but I think you could argue that the younger group that was played in the Pacific Cup could have performed better at the international stage.
I don't know. The USA for me is so I don't know how to say it, like up in arms, or not up in arms, but they're just all over the place. Mm-hmm. I don't know what their game plan is, what their identity is.
And I think
they lack in a lot of areas in 1 week, and then the next week they do well in them, but then they still lack in other areas.
Right.
It's just kind of weird.
I think with that, that'll change as the MLR develops and as we get a professional scene in the United States.
Shut up on
that's Ma'ananu going, that's crazy, but that's a different conversation.
That's a different conversation.
But I think in was it Paris or France 2023, maybe we will show up and perform better than we did this year because we will have a professional scene here in the United States of America, and it'll accelerate the growth of international rugby for the United States of America.
So what were the predictions? So I know I had England on top and then France.
That's what I had as well.
I had England, Argentina.
Oh, yeah. Okay. About that.
But hey, the one game that Argentina really needed to win in order to be that second team was that France game.
It had to be France.
And that game was really, really good.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, they had lost on an 80-minute kick.
Yeah.
But
I think that game.
The red card really.
Yeah, the early red
That
card destroyed their opportunities for that game to be
No matter
sturdy victory.
what you want to say about France coming in, no matter for any professional side playing 14 on 15 for the majority of the game,
it's hard to overcome.
It's hard
and
to
they
overcome.
couldn't do it. And it's understandable. I think if they didn't get that red card early, you could have been right.
Yeah, could have been.
Especially how that game went. Like Argentina, you could tell they had the heart and they wanted it. And you could tell they were also suffering from being down a man.
Yeah, and like I've been saying, my mentality for the Argentine side was Jaguar has been doing well, Argentina will be doing well, because again, like 71% of their team is Jaguars.
Something of that. It was over 70%.
So I'm thinking in my mind, maybe their successes and confidence will be able to translate over, and I guess not really. They helped, and their play styles are very similar. They're very forward oriented, but I don't think I guess that translation from pro league Super Rugby to international is not really a.
It's not the best.
You can't really like translate that.
It's not one-to-one, right?
Right.
So yeah, but I feel like across the board nobody's surprised that it was England-France. I think 3 of us on that prediction were England-France.
Yeah, I'm not surprised either, but
So then
that was a tough group.
Yeah. Getting Group D, I know I had Wales, Australia.
I as well.
Everybody had all as well.
Big check for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everything's right.
Gloating a little bit. You were what? 3 of the 4.
3 of the 4 I had.
Perfect.
Spot on, and then Group A, Japan.
Japan disrupted.
They came out of nowhere for me.
Your pool.
They probably disrupted everybody's pool.
Yeah, and I'm happy to hear it, honestly.
I mean, shoot, they disrupted mine a little bit, but that was just because I flipped them.
Yeah.
But regardless of that.
So that's the big game in that pool, obviously, would be Wales versus Australia. I think that was the decider of
who was
go,
at the top of that
who would be at the top. And it was a close game. It was 29-25 to Wales.
Speaking of deciders for pools, a little bit of controversial topic, but going back, because I feel like we should have touched on it and we didn't. The England-France game being canceled.
Yeah,
that is
typhoon.
Right. I understand like the safety is really important, and especially for the fans internationally that are all coming into Japan, that it is not safe weather to travel in. We get a lot of hurricanes here in South Carolina, so like we understand what that's like. I know friends and family have all been evacuated multiple times in the last few years because of horrible weather like this. But how tough of a decision do you think that is to make?
What, to put England over?
To cancel the game that would, if in theory, have been the decider for the pool.
Yeah.
That's really tough. Obviously, like it's a typhoon, and so you're worried about player safety. There's a schedule to keep on track with the World Cup. There's a lot of factors going into it. I mean, I think when you cancel a match like that, there's always going to be the what ifs.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Absolutely.
And like the logistical nightmare to like try to reschedule that game.
Yeah.
Is again, it's a nightmare. But I think it's a tough decision, but
I've said pretty sure for them that was the last resort. No one wanted to see that game canceled.
Oh, absolutely not.
Part of me also thinks that kind of gives France a little bit of a fire, because they'll probably be like, oh no, we
should have been one in the pool, sort of feeling.
Yeah,
I can get that, and it also, I mean, certainly gives both teams an edge going into the quarterfinals because they come off with extra rest in comparison to other teams.
Right.
But it's so baffling to think that the World Cup was like, okay, we're hosting on an island nation that's prone to having like weather issues during this time frame, like, and they didn't come up with a backup plan. I heard rumors that they were thinking about playing that game with an empty stadium. I don't know how true that was, but that had been in my ear at one point in time. I would not have wanted to see that.
I mean, fans are part of the experience.
The environment is so key to a match, and so I don't know. I thought I'd mention that and hear what y'all had to say on that.
Yeah, well,
I personally feel like England would have won.
Yeah, exactly. I think England would have won anyway.
I mean, again, slight bias. I agree.
Like I said, there's always going to be the what if, and I feel like, hopefully in the future, I mean, it doesn't become a big thing for France. Hopefully they don't come out of this World Cup just like, man, what if, and that just like sticks with them.
Yeah, because that would have could have changed their quarterfinal matchup.
Right.
And I think that would have made a difference on the outcome of their quarterfinal match.
Yeah, I think
the two opponents they would have been playing are very different in style, which I guess we're through.
Which is a good segue into the quarterfinal.
So let's talk about the quarterfinals. Specifically, we'll start from the beginning.
Yeah, let's start
from
the
very
beginning.
first,
Might as well.
very first quarterfinal, England versus Australia.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Wow. A wonderful game by the English side.
England just seems to be firing on all cylinders right now.
Their ability to abuse mistakes in play was impeccable.
So I've got some stats pulled up, and it directly goes with what you're saying. The capitalization on mistakes. Okay, so territory for the whole game, 62% to Australia.
Yeah.
Possession, 64% to Australia. Meters carried, Australia had 578 to England's 275.
Wow.
If you think of it, Australia had the ball for the majority of the game. They had 153 runs to 71 runs. And I feel like that just kind of adds to England's defense. They played an amazing game. They held off, obviously, their attack. I mean, they had 300 more meters carried in. Only 16 points to show for that. It's just England's defense looked crazy. They capitalized on the mistakes. They had 2 intercept tries. I will say the last one, it was
Anthony Watson's.
That should have just
That
never
ball should
happened.
never have gone. That ball should not have left.
That was a dumb decision.
The ball should never have been a skip pass, let alone a pass in general.
I know Ethan and I were talking about this earlier, and it's, England was putting so much pressure on them, but even with that pressure, they were in their own 22 and they're back of their own half.
Consistently.
You run the ball in that case, and Curly Field decided, let's skip pass it to the winger.
Right.
And that's just
a bad decision.
That's a bad decision.
And it's one mistake that was costly. And at that point in the game, like, people could tell England was pulling away, and that kind of sealed the box for me. But the problem was for Australia is that mistake was not the first or the last time that Australia was making mistakes in that game. And so Johnny May, his try, or one of his tries came off of some really poor Australian actions. And then his other try was just pure brilliance. But his performance, I remember saying that he would be my man of the tournament.
Really?
And I don't know if I said, actually, I can't say man of the tournament. I think I said man of the pool stage. But if I had to pick a man for the tournament, that was who my eyes were on.
And, well, they're back. I mean, England's wings are fantastic.
They're back three.
Back three, yeah, are
just
fantastic.
Across the board.
I mean, Johnny May and Anthony Watson had some fantastic games in this one. Like, Johnny May had 3 clean breaks. Obviously his 2 tries.
And I think
Anthony Watson got 61 carries, something like that.
Those 2 Johnny May tries were within 3 minutes of each other.
Yeah. And they were relatively early on. They were right at the end of the first quarter of the game. So it was around the 20th minute mark that both those tries occurred. And oh gosh, I feel like that invigorated the English side quite on the offensive side of the ball to fight way harder than anybody would have expected.
England had 193 tackles on the game, which is over twice as many as Australia had, with a 90% success.
Wow. That's good
tough defense. Yeah,
that's great defense. And a lot of those tackles, yes, Australia was in the English half for a lot of the game, but they weren't moving forward.
They couldn't finish. I mean, England's defense was a great defensive game. And England was able to capitalize. Owen Farrell was 100% on kicks.
Yeah. Speaking of Owen Farrell, what is your guys' opinions on the sudden change from going from pool phase to the quarterfinals and into the elimination rounds of moving the Ford-Farrell combo at 10-12 to benching Ford and putting Farrell at 10 and working with this setup?
I hope they're just resting Ford because he's so good. Yeah, I'm going to say back to the USA game where he started at 10. He was so good for that. I really would like to see that distributive duo because both of them are very good at distributing the ball and passing it around and everything like that. So I like that. I like that idea, but at the same time, having Owen Farrell at 10 is like giving your best player the ball a ton of times.
Right.
So I see why they want to do that.
To me, Owen Farrell at 10 is much more aggressive in an attacking sense of ball to hand. Ford, to me, is much more of a kicking 10.
Yeah.
They've definitively set up those styles to where it's what they used in the past before the World Cup. It was doing the Farrell starting, Ford coming in, pushing Farrell out. And it worked very well for them. And I think they're going back to it because it's more tried and true to what they want to do coming in through these elimination rounds.
And I think if you think about it, off of what you said, having Owen Farrell as that aggressive playmaker, that might have been a little bit of Eddie Jones scouting on Australia, because you look at the Wales game versus Australia. Remember how Wales started that match? They were very aggressive. They were like pounding it down their throats type deal.
Yeah.
So I guess Eddie Jones might have been like, hey, maybe the way to beat Australia is to be really, really aggressive and play a very good defensive game.
Yeah.
And so that's exactly what they did. Because you remember seeing that Wales game that Australia had majority of the territory as well as possession, but Wales played a really good defensive game. And again, they were very good with their kicks, scoring early, and just being aggressive.
I can see that. That's
I think too, it's just you have two great 10s. I mean, they can play 10 at international level and do well. And I feel like for just any team that proves to be an issue, because they both have, it's two different play styles that you now have to prepare for at that 10 role. And I mean, obviously the score shows it that Owen Farrell was a good selection at 10 for this match.
Agreed.
I think so. The one that sticks out to me is they had this great attack. It was one of Johnny May's tries. They were able to commit pretty much the entire Australian back line onto like 3 players and just left Johnny May wide open. And Farrell, I think it was Farrell was able to just pass over the top. I can't remember if the pass went first, but
I believe so.
And so it's just kind of that. And I feel like you have to leave Farrell on as well for the kicking.
Yeah.
He
was 100% this game.
He was 100% for the game.
Which it's been a while since he'd put that 100% up on the board, and this was the game to do it.
He's been kicking well the whole tournament.
The whole tournament, yeah.
He had, what was it? Was it that one game where? Which game was it?
Was it Tonga? When consistently scoring on the edges, and he was just missing they were all just like off to the side, because I mean he was kicking from the corners the whole time. That's always tough.
But besides that, for his penalties, he's 89% on penalties, and his conversion success is a little bit lower at 71%, but it's still good. Still good. That's where him and George Ford are equal there at 71% for the conversions. But obviously, Farrell is doing a lot better with the penalties. George Ford's kicked 2 and missed both, 0%.
It's quite unfortunate.
Farrell has kicked 16, and he's at 8 right now. But so
next match, New Zealand, Ireland. So New Zealand won 46-14 over Ireland. It was Rory Best's final match as an Irish player. Can we just give him a little tribute and say
thank you,
thanks to Rory Best? What do you think? What do you think made Rory Best such a good captain for them, or just a good player for them?
He's relatively consistent.
Yeah, he's a consistent hooker.
Yeah, his consistency on the field and his attitude on the field is never to be taken lightly.
No. And his leadership also on the field, and his maturity, especially whenever young guys come in, he's definitely the guy he's definitely the guy that everybody looks up to be, because his professionalism, his leadership, his consistency. He's a lion, for frick's sake.
His interviews are always enjoyable. Even they did an interview with him after this game, and he was obviously very emotional. And
I love him as a player.
It was such a heartfelt, great interview.
It takes a special kind of player to get over 100 caps. He got, I think it was 122 caps.
Something like
finally,
that. Yeah.
And at the hooker position, that's a tough position. Just in the front row.
Especially to play for a long time.
Yeah. Playing a long time like that, and I think that that speaks for who he is as a player. He's tough, consistent, and it's what you want. So.
Yeah, obviously, by his cap count.
Yeah.
So anyway, this game, it was very one-sided. New Zealand came out blasting.
Ireland was completely shut out in the first half, right? It was they had 0 points at the end of the first half, which obviously shows you intensity in which New Zealand wanted to play this game at. And if Tom were here, I would tell him I told you so, because we were talking about this last week, and I kept telling him, I was like, New Zealand's going to destroy Ireland. Like, I told him, like, New Zealand went so long without ever losing a game to Ireland, and then Ireland breaks one of the longest win streaks like New Zealand had in history, and they will not let that go. Like, even in interviews afterwards, they're like, yeah, Ireland's been the thorn in our side the last few years. And
Right.
New Zealand wanted to shut that down. And it came. It came and it went.
So here are a couple, some stats for you, Ethan. All right, so meters carried. New Zealand had 488 meters carried to Ireland's 239. Ireland had 32 missed tackles. And even though like the possession was even overall of the game, 50-50,
50-50 the whole game.
Yeah.
but you can kind of see the offensive stats for New Zealand were like blazing. They had 143 carries, 32 defenders beaten.
Relatively, they beat
18
them.
clean breaks. 18 clean breaks.
Yeah, I mean, relatively, they beat Ireland in every category except for what? Mauls?
Maul's
Maul's won.
Yeah. Other than that, like offensively, New Zealand was just much better, and defensively, Ireland struggled. Like the fact, what did you say? 37,
32.
32 missed tackles.
Yeah.
That is like destructive to a game. That is a lot of tackles to be missing.
And on top of that, the kicking as well was just superior for New Zealand. They both had 33 total kicks, exactly even. And New Zealand was able to gain 837 meters compared to Ireland's 537 meters.
Jeez.
And then they were able to regather 19 of those 33 kicks.
Oh,
Wow.
wow.
It's just,
Credit to New Zealand's, I guess, like 5 primary kickers. Really, you look at their back 3; they're all great kickers, and then you look at their 9 and 10.
Aaron Smith.
Richie Mo'unga had a beautiful cross kick pass, and love it. I mean,
What do you think of Richie Mo'unga playing at 10 versus Bodie?
I mean,
I
just
like
looking at
it.
this, to me, Bowden Barrett is really a great rugby player. I think Richie is kind of showing that he's a little bit better just at the 10 position. But you want Bowden out on the field because overall he's
Your best player.
he's a good, solid, best rugby player.
Right.
And so I think having Richie at 10 and having Bowden at 15 is a great combo because it allows Bowden to really insert where he can. I mean, they had a great, I think it was a turnover from Ireland, and Richie was able to get just a little chip, and so got the ball kind of grubbered out, and Bowden Barrett just has an amazing pace and awareness and was able to immediately get on that, kick it even further down the field, and no one's going to catch him, and they were able to turn that into a try just like that.
Yeah. So speaking of tries, somebody who doesn't, I wouldn't say normally a scorer for the New Zealand side, put up 2 tries. Aaron Smith.
2 tries, yep. And that's his 2 tries for this tournament so far.
Yeah, that's the only 2.
And it came off of, I think it's kind of what we saw, just New Zealand is amazing at capitalizing on anyone's mistakes. They're probably the best team at immediately seeing a space and just boom, attacking it. Like, it's just what they do. Aaron Smith, first try, he caught Ireland sleeping in that A gap. So the A gap it's what we call, it's the gap right next to the ruck. That's generally the position you want to set first because Aaron Smith saw that no one was there, and he was able to, I mean, you're 5 meters from your goal line.
Yeah.
You're able to squirm through that.
He was just able to just run that in, and no one was, he's just too fast. You have to have someone there. And
Right.
I mean, they were just working Ireland side to side. Eventually, I mean, to me, when I was watching it, I was like, I feel like Aaron Smith is going to try to run it in because Ireland just looks slow getting from side to side, and that's what happened. The next try came kind of soon after that. I can't quite remember the time, but it was just another case. Ireland, this one was in a corner. The only defender on the weak side thought the ball was out, and he got offsides, and Aaron Smith immediately saw that and just ran into the corner. And that's just another. It's just a free try, and when you're at this level, you're in the quarterfinals, you can't give away tries like that.
Right, especially off of like mistakes around the ruck.
Exactly. I mean, that's
it's that the breakdown is so important in every single phase at this level of play, and the fact that Aaron Smith single-handedly capitalized into tries twice off of it just shows you that Ireland was not at the level that New Zealand was this weekend. And it really, this like they did not perform in this tournament the way that people wanted them to or expected them to. Yeah. Losing in the pool phase to Japan, and then losing, I guess quarterfinals exit was not unexpected.
That's classic Ireland, I think.
Yeah.
People
Classic
didn't,
Ireland.
obviously, I mean, Irish fans didn't want to see it. It's the joke, and I feel like, I don't know, for me this year, I thought Ireland was going to be able to make it to the semifinals. I really did. And then after they lost to Japan, to me, I was like, that's
it.
Yeah, that's probably going to be it
proof.
for them.
Yeah. So moving on to day 2, a close match with Wales and France. Wales being down at half by 9, and then taking the win in the last few minutes by 1.
France started this game out so well. They scored within 5 and then 8 minutes.
Yeah.
Right? So 2 quick scores. They go up 12-0 within 10 minutes. And then I think around that time they had a substitution to get Ross Moriarty on the field and due to head injury. And then 10 seconds later, maybe not 10 seconds later, but a few minutes later he gets a yellow card.
it was a minute later.
It was literally a minute later.
Yeah.
They subbed at the 28, and he got a yellow card at the 29th minute.
Oh, man. Man.
And then France was immediately able to capitalize that. It took them 2 minutes after that yellow card to get a try. That was their center. It was a 13. Don't even want to attempt his name.
Not worth an attempt.
Remy
Vakatawa.
Yeah.
And that's just, when you're a man down, I mean, that speaks to, you got to capitalize on that. France was able to do that against Argentina. Argentina was a man down, and that's really how they would be able to beat them. And Wales goes a man down for 10 minutes, and immediately they're able to score a try off of that. So I think the first half, France really did look solid.
Phenomenal.
They were able to get up to, was it 19-10? Yep, 19-10 at the half. So, and then the second half was just
all Wales.
All Wales.
Yeah.
Wales, in the last 10 minutes of the match, had 92% territory.
Oh, see, that's oppressive. That's what that is. Almost speechless. But once again, I've said this throughout the whole tournament. Through every week we've talked about France. Is like their substitutions, I don't think ever work successly. Whenever they roll in new players, I don't think they make as strong of an impact as the subs for every other team that they play against. I always feel like it's underwhelming when you get into that depth of the roster. And again, they didn't put up a single point in the second half. And your substitutes have to come in that second half, and they have to put in the work, and they have to dominate the field, because they are going to be the most energetic people on the field.
Right.
I think so. I agree with the subs were a problem, and they just didn't have the impact they should have. France also did get a red card in the 49th minute.
Yeah, that does impact. Once again, as we were saying with Argentina early,
kind of what happened is just the flip.
14 on 15.
Yep. And Wales, they were able to capitalize it. They were only able to get the 10 points in that second half. So they were able to get a penalty and a try with a conversion. So, I mean, I feel like that speaks to France as well, that they're able to still defend 14 on 15. But in the end,
It's detrimental.
Yeah, that's detrimental. And
It's hard.
that's a mistake.
If I would have to pick a player, though, that I think composes himself well and stood the test of this match is Dan Bigger. And that's an easy choice, obviously.
Yeah, that is an easy choice.
But there's a reason why, like, his name
Always pops up on the stat sheet.
right is because he is the player that you can look to make the kicks that he needs to make. And I mean, single-handedly, he's worth 10 points of that game. Between his conversions and his penalties, like
He's worth half of the scoring.
right. And kickers are just so valuable. Like, that's why Owen Farrell, like, always comes to mind with England, is because he puts up the points in the penalties and the conversions. And that's what Dan Bigger did this morning. We are recording this on Sunday, so this morning.
True.
I feel like, too, just like going to this tournament, I mean, Dan Bigger was a question mark for Wales. He wasn't their starter really consistently in the past Six Nations. They were trying out another 9-10 combination, and here he is. I mean, he's a veteran now. He's been here, and I mean, it showed with he got the points he needed to put Wales ahead, and I think that's what matters.
Absolutely.
So, close game for Wales. I will say I don't know how France's kicker feels right now. He missed the first conversion, and that's 2 points right there that
could have
would have put France up 21-19
or 20-20.
So,
if you watch some post-match interviews, though, Warren Gatlin, this was an interesting interview. Warren Gatlin had an interview, and he said that the better team lost that match. Would you agree with this? Do you think that France were the better team in this game?
I think
in the first half, yes.
I think a game is 80 minutes, and you have to respect the calls of a sir, and you have to respect the impacts that everybody has on a game. And when you have a player that gets red carded in the 49th minute, and that's detrimental to your team, that I think that's also definitive to a team. And I think, no, I don't think the better team lost that match because they were the team that got a red card. They were the team that couldn't hold the lead. If it would have been a different story if there wasn't a red card and they had played that game cleaner.
But that's discipline.
But that's discipline.
That's on everybody.
And discipline is what makes great teams great. That's not what makes good teams good.
That's the ones that separate the great teams from the elite teams.
Right. And so I don't think the better team won specifically because the discipline that France had is why they lost.
Fair enough. So, final match of the quarterfinals. Japan, South Africa.
Now,
I really wanted Japan to win, but I know South Africa, they've been playing like their hair has been on fire this entire tournament.
The first half of this match was a great match. 5-3.
That was one mistake on Japan's defender. It was their 10
early.
It was really early. It was off the scrum. Faf de Klerk had a great quick pass under pressure to South Africa's 11, and he was able to. Unfortunately, Japan's 10 just didn't have a really good angle. Was kind of only able to get his arms into the tackle, and
it was wonderfully set up, and it was well executed. But Japan, like, for the rest of that half, we're like not willing to accept that as their defeat. and they played their style. The whole first half, Japan was so aggressive. Their offloads were there. They had 11 offloads, I believe, by halftime.
Jeez.
It was ridiculous numbers, and they were so aggressive. The passes were being made. They were attacking the edges of the field, and they looked great. The problems happened when they got 10 meters from the try line or 15 meters from the try line, and they started to make those mistakes. They started to get the try line fever, and they couldn't close. and so going into the second half, though, I was sitting there and I was watching this game, and I was like, if Japan continues to play how they love to play rugby and how they successfully play rugby, they've got a chance to beat South Africa. And then they didn't. They played South Africa's game. In my eyes, they tried box kicking. Really? They tried pod play against a side that is bigger than them, that plays that style of rugby, that always is good with the close bashes off of the breakdown. And Japan stopped playing the hands, almost sevens-esque when it comes to offloading and attacking the edges and going for the space. And they tried to play the kicking game and the potting game that is not the Japanese style. And to me, that's why they gave up those extra 21 points in the second half.
I mean, you can tell just from the stats, kind of like the game plans going in. Like you said, Japan, they're always. The first half they wanted to play passe because that's what works for them.
Right.
They had the whole game 204 passes to South Africa's 104. South Africa knew going in that if they were able to get Japan to play their game, which is forward heavy, South Africa has a huge pack, and everyone knows that. And it shows they were to get Japan to kind of get into their play style, and South Africa is going to win that.
Right, especially
against that smaller team that Japan has.
And Japan, it caused Japan to have errors in their side of the field that are perfect for penalty kicks. And the same thing happened to Japan that happened to Ireland when Ireland played Japan, where South Africa just started putting up penalty kicks with Pollard just putting them through the post. Obviously, he missed one, but those penalties, those kicks, that's 9 points you just gave up for penalties, for playing the form of rugby that's not true to you.
Yeah, and like you said, the kicking for Japan in the previous matches definitely helped them. Again with the Ireland game, and I don't want to say mad, or disappointed that they didn't put Kinki Fukuoka a little bit more, give the ball a little bit more to him out wide, because he's a stellar player. Because again, he's scored 23 tries within 36 appearances, something insane like that. I would give the ball to him a lot because he's literally lightning in a bottle. But I just, like you said, you can't play the South Africa style because they are enormous. Everybody on that team is big. Everybody on that team is athletic. Everybody knows how to play, and they're kicking games really well. Andre Pollard is probably one of the best 10s in the world. And it's just a tough game to play that style. So.
And other than their attempt of playing the South African style, what I feel like ruined Japan was their set pieces. So Japan.
Oh yeah, because they had.
Japan lost too many of their lineouts. They were 8 and 13 on lineouts that they won, and that's just those 5 lineouts were so important in that game because those are what let South Africa crawl through those pressured moments or dominate those moments deep in the Japanese territory.
And on top of that as well, South Africa had a 100% ruck win rate, whereas Japan gave up 6. So against a larger side like that, it's tough to be that physical. So
I think one player I want to talk about is South Africa's 11. I mentioned him earlier. He had the opening try. Yep. He had 2 tries and 111 meters carried.
He's a good player.
Was he also the one with the yellow card? No, that was the prop.
No. Yeah,
wasn't it? Yeah, that was. He was close though. That was the contest in the air, in which they reviewed a contest in the air with him.
You mean Beast?
The Beast.
Was the one who got it.
Yeah.
Tendai Matuaria.
I'm thinking of the contest in the air on the edge of the field, and he came in and he was just like running up onto the kick chase, and that there was some talk with the sir on that one, but no, he's
been
extremely aggressive.
He's been a force for South Africa this whole tournament. He's at 5 tries now in the this Rugby World Cup in 4 matches. He showed against Japan. I mean, he had his opening try was he beat 2 defenders to get that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he broke through an arm tackle. I mean, you can't do that against him. He's just going to break through it, and then was able to get past another defender trying to come in and cover. And, I mean, he's
a good player. And, like, on the other side of the wing, Cheslin Colby, I was kind of disappointed he didn't get a lot of action. Because usually, I mean, Mapepe had 111 carries versus Cheslin Colby.
Mean meters.
Meters. Versus Cheslin Colby had 17.
Well,
like
one thing though that
he's usually the guy who leads that stat for South Africa.
The one thing though is you can look at their runs, so you can see like how many times they carried the ball forward, and Makazole carried the ball 7 times with the meters that he had, and Cheslin Colby, he touched the ball 6 times, or he made 6 runs. And didn't put up the meters.
Right.
And so I think that's a credit to their attack with Mapipi. I'm sorry if I'm butchering his name, but that's a credit to finding the space, being in the right position, and making the aggressive moves that he needed to be making. So yes, normally Kobe rules that stat. Mm-hmm. This was his game to shine.
Do you think also Japan looked back at previous games, saw Cheslin Colby as such a threat, and then had his number called for defense?
Not necessarily. I think, obviously he's a name and a face that they want to defend and they want to hold, they want to contain. But I don't think the program's naive enough to be like just because we have to cover him doesn't mean we don't need to cover the other wing, you know?
Yeah.
Because South Africa, they're 4th in the world right now. They can use both their wings. They can use everybody on the field.
Everybody on that field is good.
Mm-hmm. So any final thoughts on this quarterfinal matches before we get into some predictions for semifinals?
Well, I just want to say, even though some of my teams were wrong, mixed up Japan and Scotland, all the teams I expected to make it to the semifinals made it to the semifinals. I guess South Africa, New Zealand, England, and Wales. So I'm just going to toot my own horn there.
Yeah, this is about what I expected for the four going through. They're all ranked the top 4 right now, correct?
Yeah, and you currently have the top 2 sides from the Northern Hemisphere and the top 2 sides from the Southern Hemisphere.
Yeah, you have New Zealand at 1, England at 2, Wales at 3, and South Africa at 4.
Yeah, great matchups.
So it almost is the expectation.
Yep.
Yeah.
Wales coming off of their Grand Slam.
Yeah, Grand Slam. And
expected if they didn't make it this far, that'd be extremely disappointing.
Yeah, it's like semifinal or I think for Wales maybe it's even final or bust. For them.
Ooh, wow, that's a
tough
expectation.
At least that's what they want. You know,
absolutely. Well, everybody wants to win.
Yeah, but
speaking of winning, who do you have winning in the semifinals?
In the semifinals, okay. So let's see. We have South Africa. So let's go over the matches. So it's South Africa versus Wales, and then New Zealand versus England.
Right.
So, flip them if you want to talk about day order.
Day order. So
semifinal 1. Okay. England, New Zealand. Who do you have?
Okay. I have New Zealand.
That hurts.
That's who I have. I think it's going to be a great match, though. From what I know, I talked about this with Ethan before the podcast because we like to talk about rugby. And just from the games we've seen, both teams showed that they were able to capitalize on mistakes extremely quickly. England's wingers look so dangerous. And so I feel like it's really, I mean, I know you could say this about it, it's going to come down to defense. It's whichever team makes a mistake, the other team is just going to capitalize on that.
Score.
So it's going to be, in my opinion, a pretty defense-heavy game. England looked amazing against Australia to contain that. Australia were able to have the ball, and just England didn't crack. You know, they may have bent, but
They didn't
crack. They didn't break. And so that's credit to them. I still think New Zealand's going to come out on top, though.
All right, so what about Wales, South Africa?
Wales, South Africa. Wales looked
All right.
iffy against France. And, I mean, you could say the same about South Africa against Japan. Japan was able to hold it, especially in that first half, 5-3. But
although I would say Japan looks great when they play their style. They look like a top tier, a top 8 team.
But I think South Africa is gonna. I just think they're gonna win it. That's
Yeah. Now, what about you, CJ?
So England, New Zealand, I think that's good. That matchup, whoever wins that game is going to win the World Cup.
Wow, that's some bold words.
I think that's it, because right now those two teams I think are the ones that are firing on all cylinders. I'm not saying that they look invincible, but they look pretty freaking close.
So who do you have winning that match?
New Zealand.
well.
I think
So you have New
Zealand
Zealand going all the way for the 3rd time in a row.
We're doing finals predictions too. Okay.
Well, I guess so. I mean, he made his call.
Yeah.
He made his decision already.
If England is able to beat New Zealand, then I think they're winning it all.
All right, so what about Wales, South Africa?
Wales, South Africa. Now, this one's I think is going to be a little bit tougher. I'm probably going to side with Tyler, depending on how Wales play. If they want to play aggressive like they have been recently, that's going to be tough against a huge side like South Africa. You can't really play really, really aggressive ball or really, really aggressive play with a team like that. So that's where I think South Africa is probably going to edge it out by. I think it's going to be a close score. I think it's going to be the score. This is my prediction: 26-25.
Wow.
It's going to be a very close.
You're throwing the darts right now, and we're going to see next weekend if you are hitting the bullseye or if you're off the board. Because I don't think you're in between.
He's riding high in the gym.
He is riding high off the Japan prediction.
If I'm confident right now, I'm going to go for it.
All right. So last but not least,
Mr. Bias over here.
My predictions. England.
Mr. Bias.
So I believe I'm the only person that has a team of interest left in the tournament.
Yeah,
so,
I'm not going to sit here and say, you're just saying England. I mean, I think England has a really good chance.
Definitely has a legit chance.
And I think if England continues to use their 9, 10, 11, 14, and 15 the way that they've been using them, I think they can outkick New Zealand.
I do want to say this is an interesting stat. So this is the first time since 2007 that England has made it to the semifinal.
I know. It's been a while, but it's been good recently.
If we remember in that one, England did end up losing in the final to South Africa.
Oh!
Okay, well, since you bounced to it,
couldn't be repeating itself.
Since you bounced to it, South Africa is who I have winning the other quarterfinal. I have an England-South Africa rematch. But I, again, there is some bias. I have England going all the way.
Okay. Oh. So I guess I'm the one who hasn't said mine.
Yeah, what's your finals prediction?
So in the bracket I made, I said South Africa would be winning it against New Zealand.
So all of us have different winners.
But none of us think Wales is going to win it.
No.
Right.
So we could all be extremely wrong.
Yeah, there's a chance
winning it.
all of us are wrong.
Yeah.
Well, actually, if Wales wins their semifinal, we are all wrong on one of our finalists. So, but again, to me, England, it comes down to the kicking. To me, I think if England outkicks New Zealand, they've got that game, and I think they can. Obviously, we talked about Bowden Barrett, and we talked about Mo'unga. Like Richie Mo'unga's, their kicking was on point this past weekend. But like every week's a new week, and every week you have to prepare for the team in front of you. And I think England's done a great job at preparing for what's in front of them.
And again,
they'll do it again.
Eddie Jones quote: "We haven't even played our best."
Oh,
He said that.
He did say that. So
that's a tough.
that is a big feat to do
feat.
better than what they've
Big
done, but I think they can do it. So
and like again, they're also not playing in New Zealand.
that's true.
So
playing
in New Zealand, England versus New Zealand in New Zealand is always seemed to be a New Zealand W. But since it's on a neutral site, who knows?
Who knows?
Don't you bring up the 2015 World Cup. Don't you do it. I saw that face.
It was a different team then.
It was a very different team.
Different coaching. So I'm excited. I think it's going to be good games. I hope it's good games all around.
I'll be up at 4 a.m. on Saturday. I don't know about you guys.
Yeah, I'll be up. I'll be awake.
So we have a big TV in our apartment. I will be in that living room, and I have invited Tom, who unfortunately couldn't join us today but wanted to. Tyler will hopefully get out of his bedroom and sit on the couch with me and watch it. CJ, you are welcome to join us, and we will be talking about it next Sunday. So we are happy that you stayed and listened, and we enjoy hearing from you. We want to hear your predictions for the rest of this World Cup. Please put them in the comments, like, share, do all of the possible social media things you can. So once again, my name's Ethan Richards.
And this is CJ Bakle. Watch some rugby this week, guys. Watch some rugby. That's all I got to say.
And thank you for listening.